The Nintendo DS has unparalleled levels of success in the handheld console market, and it looks like it is the one to beat, but back when it was being created, a lot of people Nintendo did not like it, according to a new interview. So when you look at the DS, the XL, the Lite, the 3DS, it seems like, wow, what a great move by Nintendo to create this thing. And basically, the PSP was a massive failure if you look at them beside each other.
Yeah.
The DS went on to sell north of 150 million units when it came out. PSP only sold half of that, and as you will note, no longer exists. So there is that level of success right there. So according to Satoru Okada, who was the general manager of research and engineering at Nintendo before he retired in 2012, there was a kind of a pushback against what was to become the 3DS, or the DS at the time, rather. Because, as you will remember, this was the 5th iteration in the handheld line, and until that point, they had all had the word Game Boy attached to them. Game Boy Advance, and then we were moving on to what the next level was, which was codenamed Iris. And they were already working on it. It looked nothing like the DS does now. It didn't have that second screen. And they were pushing forward until something unexpected happened when the late President Iwata had a call with him. President Iwata then came to see me. He was obviously bothered, and he said, "I talked to Yamauchi-san over the phone, and he thinks your console should have 2 screens, a bit like the multi-screen Game & Watch. You see, everybody is aware of this, but what people do not know is that at the time, everybody hated this idea, even Iwata himself. We thought it did not make any sense." And there was a lot of pushback against this, though surprisingly, Iwata said, "No, let's go with Yamauchi-san, and we'll just do it." And it turned out to be a great success, which he later, Okada later said, that was the right move, obviously.
So Hiroshi Yamauchi, as you're pronouncing that? Yamauchi-san? He was a former president of Nintendo before
Iwata.
Before Iwata was. So this to me is super interesting because everyone that worked in Nintendo hated this idea. Everyone that was in charge of it, everyone that worked for them, all thought that the 2 screens was a stupid idea. And then this guy who has retired calls them on the phone and says, "No, you need to do 2 screens." And they listen to him. They go ahead and do it even though they don't like it.
Well, it didn't make sense at first because it's like, well, you get more screen space, but we could choose how big the screen is, and it doesn't make sense to us why there would need to be this division between them, but then making the lower screen touch sensitive, it did throw in this different level of gaming, and it was fun, and it caught on.
Which is a cool thought experiment about challenging yourself and maybe not going with your first idea. Is they had thrust upon them this requirement to include a second screen, and none of them really understood why, but being able to think about that from outside of the collective that they had already made for what was to be the Iris Game Boy, codename Iris, they came up with this whole new revolution. I mean, the DS had a touchscreen before smartphones had touchscreens, before the first iPhone, so this was like way ahead of its time, and contributes to being the reason that the DS was a runaway success and continues to this day.
They called it Project Nitro, and it did take off as if with Nitro. Yeah, it does go back to because they didn't like it, they didn't want to do it. Iwata said, "Hey, let's do this let's give it a try, see if you can do it." Then we had Okada telling his team, "Okay, we'll do our best. We'll try. I have some experience working with 2 screens. We'll make this happen somehow." And they did, and it was awesome. But if you do miss the days of just 1 screen, we have the Switch coming up. Everything is a circle.
Yeah, I'm excited about the Switch. I mean, that's a different conversation. I think it looks good. I'm still just blown away by this idea that a retired president could have so much. I mean, is this
I don't think that would happen in most instances.
Right. Is
they
this
would
like
be
the
like,
Japanese
okay,
culture of respecting your elder?
man.
Can you imagine if Steve Wozniak called up Tim Cook and was like, "No, man, you got to put a screen on both sides of the phone"? And then, would Tim Cook listen to him?
Okay, that's a different scenario. But if I were Tim Cook, I would listen to him.
Well, yeah, hindsight is 20/20. But yeah. Crazy to me that this happened, but I'm glad it did.
It worked. Sometimes the right idea isn't the most obvious one.
Or popular.
or popular or the one that is said by the people in power even. But it worked out pretty well, as evidenced here by Nintendo. Do you have a DS, a 3DS, an XL, a Lite? And do you think this was ultimately the best choice they could have made? Let us know below in the comments, and please like and subscribe for more.